So how does a single idea travel through time? I mean, how does it start in a Soviet-era novel, get completely reimagined by a legendary film director, and then decades later find a whole new life as a world-famous video game? Well, today we're going to trace that exact journey. We're diving deep into the zone, a concept so powerful it's been capturing our imagination for 50 years. And this right here, this one analogy is the key to the whole thing. It comes from the original book, Roadside Picnic, and it frames the entire idea of the alien visitation. Just picture it. Aliens land on Earth, hang out for a bit like we would for a picnic, and then they just leave. And what's left behind? Their trash. To them, it's just garbage. Old batteries, empty cans, spark plugs. But to us, the little ants crawling around in the aftermath, these things are miracles, they're terrifying, they're priceless, and they are totally beyond our understanding. That's the humble and honestly kind of horrifying idea at the heart of this whole universe. All right, so here's our roadmap. We're going to start at the very beginning with the novel A Roadside Picnic. Then we'll get into the super unique vision of the film adaptation that followed. We'll put the book and the film head to head, see how the whole concept then just exploded into pop culture with the Stalker games, and finally, we'll try to get to the bottom of the biggest mystery of all. What even is the zone? So, our story kicks off in 1972. We've got this philosophical sci-fi novel from two Soviet authors, Arkady and Boris Strugatsky. And, this wasn't your typical alien invasion story. No, this was a really gritty, deep look at what happens when humanity bumps up against something it just cannot comprehend. The book introduces us to the zone. So there are 6 of these places on Earth, leftovers from that alien picnic. They're completely sealed off by the government, and for good reason. They are filled with all kinds of deadly traps and weird anomalies. We're talking pockets of crushing gravity, invisible meat grinders that'll shred you, and this stuff called hell slime that literally melts bone. But they also hold these priceless artifacts that just laugh in the face of physics. So they're places of both unimaginable danger and, you guessed it, incredible value. So who in their right mind would go into a place like that? Well, that would be the Stalker. These are tough, disillusioned guys who sneak into the zone illegally, grab what they can, and sell it on the black market. The name Stalker itself, which the authors just invented for the book, became so iconic that it actually entered the Russian language. Now it's a word for anyone who explores forbidden places, kind of like an urban explorer. Pretty cool, huh? The book follows the grim life of our main guy, Redrick Red Schuart. And look, this is not a hero's journey. It's a story about pure desperation. Red keeps trying to get out, to live a normal life. But the zone and the money, they always drag him back in. He's doing it for his family, especially for his daughter, Monkey, whose mutations everyone thinks are because of his job. The whole thing builds to this one last, desperate trip to find the mythical Golden Sphere, an artifact that's supposed to grant your deepest wish. Okay, so flash forward to 1979. The novel gets the attention of this legendary Soviet director, Andrei Tarkovsky. But here's the thing. Tarkovsky was not interested in just making the book into a movie. No, he saw the core idea of the zone as like raw clay for his own very different ideas about what cinema could be. This quote, man, this tells you everything you need to know about how he saw the world. Tarkovsky really believed that the actual, authentic sounds of life, the wind, water dripping, a glass clinking, were way more powerful than any movie score. He didn't want to just add music. He saw sound itself as a material to be shaped, just as important as the picture. And this gets to his real mission. He didn't want to adopt the plot of Roadside Picnic. He wanted to borrow the idea of the zone for something else entirely. He had this method he called sculpting in time, where he would use these incredibly long, slow shots to make you feel the passage of time. He cared way more about the atmosphere, the feeling of a moment, than he did about what was actually happening. He was making a poem, not a sci-fi thriller. And what's wild is how the real world started to reflect the movie during filming. The production was a total disaster. The first version of the film, completely lost. The lab ruined the footage, so they had to reshoot almost the whole thing. And the place they picked, be the zone, it was literally downstream from a chemical plant that was dumping poison into the river. You see that weird snow and foam in the water in the film? Yeah, that was actual toxic waste. The film's zone was literally dangerous, and the crew really suffered for it. You can see exactly what Tarkovsky cared about in his use of color. He splits the film into 2 worlds. Everything outside the zone is shot in this bleak, brownish, gray sepia. It looks dreary, hopeless. But the second the characters cross into the zone, boom, the film just erupts into this lush, vivid color. And that's not just a cool trick. It's him telling us, okay, we've left the real world behind. We're in a spiritual space now, where the normal rules just don't apply. All right, so on one hand, you have a gritty, almost action-packed sci-fi novel. And on the other, you have this slow, deeply philosophical art house film, which brings us right to the heart of it all. How Tarkovsky didn't just adapt this book, he completely reinvented it. So let's just ask the question head on. How different can a film that's loosely based on a book actually be? You'd think they'd at least share the same skeleton, right? Well, in this case, the differences aren't just on the surface, they go right down to the soul of the story. Let's just break this down, because it's kind of stunning. The stalker in the book is a tough guy out for cash. In the film, he's a spiritual guide, a holy fool. The goal goes from a physical object, the golden sphere, to this totally abstract idea of the room. And the climax, the book ends with this brutal act of choice, while the film's big moment is about inaction, about being too scared to even know yourself. Every single piece is changed, turning a sci-fi thriller into a spiritual journey. So you have to ask, why? Why change everything? Well, it's because Tarkovsky just wasn't interested in alien gadgets or sci-fi shootouts. He was interested in faith, in doubt, in the human spirit. For him, the zone wasn't a junkyard of alien tech. It was a place where you had to face the deepest, darkest parts of yourself. The whole journey became internal. The danger wasn't some invisible trap. It was the horrifying thought that your deepest wish might be something awful. So the original book was a big deal, and the film became an all-time classic. But the story, it does not end there. It was actually the combined energy of these two totally different visions that created this massive cultural wave that's still going strong today. It really was like a perfect storm. You had the novel's incredible world building, all the detailed anomalies, the artifacts, the whole culture of the stalkers, and you smash that together with the film's unforgettable haunting vibe, that feeling of dread and beauty and deep, deep mystery. That mix of gritty sci-fi and philosophical weight, it turned out to be incredibly powerful. And man, the influence just spread everywhere. The zone popped up in stage plays, it inspired post-punk bands, it became the basis for tabletop role-playing games. You can totally see its DNA in the Metro 2030 series, in that movie Annihilation, even in TV shows like Debris. The idea was just too compelling to leave alone. But maybe its single greatest legacy, the version that brought the zone to millions of new people all over the world, was the one that you could actually step into yourself. Then came the year 2007, and everything changed. The zone was about to become a real place that anyone could visit. And that's when we got to enter the world of Stalker, Shadow of Chernobyl. This Ukrainian video game took all those core ideas and just dropped players right into the middle of a brand new zone. This one formed around the Chernobyl disaster site. And the absolute genius of the game is how it perfectly blended the best parts of both the book and the film. From the novel, it took the action, the whole gameplay loop of hunting for artifacts, dodging deadly anomalies. But from the film, it took its soul. The game is just soaked in that same lonely, oppressive, beautiful atmosphere. And it completely changes things. Your journey isn't just a mission. It's a grim pilgrimage. It's a true test of who you are. And that brings us all the way back around to the central puzzle. After looking at the book, the film, the games, we still have to ask, what is the zone, really? And to even try to answer that, we have to go back to Tarkovsky's film and its famous, mysterious ending. The key to the film's entire philosophy might be hidden in its final, unforgettable scene. It's a moment that has had people talking and arguing for decades, and it all comes down to a very simple, very strange event. Okay, so at the very end of the movie, we're watching this stalker's daughter. She's sitting alone at a table, and 3 glasses start to slide across it, all by themselves. Right then, a loud train rumbles by outside. So what's happening? Well, the rational, logical explanation is that the train's vibrations are moving the glasses. It's just physics. But the other explanation is so much more profound, that the daughter, this child of the zone, has psychic powers. And Tarkovsky just puts both possibilities right there in front of you. Tarkovsky once used this incredible line to describe a portrait by Leonardo da Vinci, but it fits the daughter perfectly. Is her power a miracle? A sign of hope? Or is it something monstrous? Something beyond our simple ideas of good and evil? Her face tells us nothing. She is, in a way, the human version of the zone itself, a source of both potential wonder and absolute terror. And this leads us to the final lingering question. By showing us her powers manifesting outside the physical borders of the zone, Tarkovsky leaves us with this really provocative thought. Maybe the zone isn't just a place on a map you can go to. Maybe it's a state of being, a potential for faith, or maybe something else entirely that we all carry inside of us, just waiting for the right moment to surface.